I found that instructors get lost in technology. And the more technology we put into a room, the easier it is for them to get lost. And they lose their focus, they lose the message, and then the experience diminishes. Yes, I would argue that to some degree, all of these advancements are fantastic and have their place. But in a general lecture purpose, I'm not necessarily sure that it actually enhances the learning. I'm going to be the guy with the unpopular opinion here, so feel free to direct any comments, not to Aaron. This is my own unpopular opinion.
Well, why you pulling me? I'm right.
On this episode, we discuss experience centers, broadcast production, and standard changes. All that and more on EdTech. EdTech episode 136, Unpopular Opinion. Hello, AV friends. Welcome to another episode of EdTech. Today, I'm joined by Rob Rasberry. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Aaron. Always glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I always talk about, where the guests are from and what they do, but I kind of feel like it's been a while since we've talked about you. So why don't you tell everyone where you're from and what you do there?
Okay. So I am the Director of Collaboration and Classroom Services in the Department of Central IT at Drexel University, which is located in Philadelphia. So we handle central classrooms, roundabouts 100, depending upon which term you go to, and provide support for that. That's the one group that I do, a lot of AV technology, that kind of thing, anything from auditoriums to small classrooms. The other group I handle is called Video Collaboration and Production, which deals with video collaboration, Zoom, Teams, meeting, all that good stuff, and production, video production, live streaming, any kind of video technology. So that's, in a nutshell, quick summary of what I do.
Nice. Well, it was good to kind of get a little more in depth with Rob here because, as I figure, we're a little short on our usual panel today. So,
yes,
figured might as well take the time to get to know Rob a little more.
Oh, okay. Okay. What other questions do you want? No. Let's move on.
So today's special guest joining us for this episode is Matt O'Reilly from the University of Toronto.
Hello. How is everyone today?
Excellent. Yeah. Welcome, Matt. So how about you tell everyone what you do over there at UT?
Sure. So I am the manager of events and classroom experience at the University of Toronto. We're a tri-campus. I'm actually at the Mississauga campus. Our central campus is in downtown Toronto proper, and is the largest of the three. So primarily I'm dealing with classroom AV events across the UTM campus, some tri-campus work, but a lot of UC work with Zoom and Teams. And we're just all the design, install, maintenance, you name it. That's what we do there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today for this episode. So let's jump right into these articles that we read. This first one comes to us from AV Buyers Club. Crestron expands European presence with new experience center in Belgium. And this was written by Steph Beckett. So where should manufacturers be placing these experience centers, over here in North America, or should they just be relying on integrators to have showrooms?
It's interesting because I've been to the Crestron Experience Center up in Jersey there, and it's fantastic. That's a good question, Aaron, because I think it comes down to where the company is, where they feel they're going to be able to bring the most people in. I think there's a balance. So you have an experience center because you can bring people in to visit. You have all your products set in the environment that you want it set up in. You have people that are prepared there to answer questions. I also was really appreciative of them taking us through the manufacturing process and that part of it. So you got to get a more intimate look at the company that, you may be doing business with. And I think, having experts there to answer questions was excellent. And you just have sort of an immersive feel versus an integrator comes in, shows some products, or you go to like a regional tech fair and you get, they demonstrate something at a booth. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're great and I think they're necessary. But sometimes if you're on the cusp of really trying to find out what the product is, what it can do, how it can fit into your environment, in your infrastructure, having these experience centers is a great thing. There's other companies that do it. And obviously with Crestron being sort of a global company, it makes sense to have something out in Belgium, and maybe it's a newer market for them and they're trying to, grab more business. I really don't know, but experience centers really are really great things to get to know a company.
Yeah, I would agree completely, Rob. I found that when I did the same tour quite a few years ago now, you really do get a better sense of what the company is about because you have those experts that are able to answer questions a little better with respect to sustainability, with respect to accessibility, all those things that don't necessarily come across at an integrator show, or that, may not be focused on, and to your point earlier is the integrators, they want to show you some product, but they're only showing you a specific line of product, or they're only showing you the what's new, not, how can I integrate this particular piece with my, aged VGA projector, which some schools still have in place, right? Guilty, very guilty. All that being said, I think experience centers are really valuable. I think placing them in centers where people have a better opportunity, where they can get the most reach, would probably be most beneficial. I'm seeing now, obviously, with where manufacturing is going in the U.S. versus where it's starting to go across North America and in Europe, based on the tariff situation and manufacturing costs. I know that's opening up a lot of doors for people as well. So it may give people a better opportunity to showcase their products in markets that they otherwise wouldn't have been in.
Yeah, because it sounds like a great idea to have these centers in places that they may not have necessarily a lot of other opportunities. So, but at the same time, for the company itself, they have to go for the most bang for their buck, the most reach. So obviously the more metro centered areas. So like where Crestron's HQ is in Jersey, like it's close to New York. Also then California, Texas, kind of like those bigger reach areas. But yeah, I think it is interesting, the opening of experience centers, but they had recently closed a lot of education centers. So I know I have bet there was one near me in Columbia, Maryland, that had closed not long ago. And I'm not sure if the one in Toronto is still open. I know I'd attended an audio class there just pre-COVID.
Yeah, they did just reopen it. It was closed and they did do virtual classes, but I think I think that's also a sign of economic pressure, right? It's just going to be dependent on what they value more. Do they value being able to teach to more people virtually versus providing the experience center, which can house more people theoretically than just the 9 or 10 people that are going to be sitting around tables with equipment.
Absolutely. But there's something to be said about that hands-on like training. But which is also a great thing about these experience centers, in being able to see and kind of touch the equipment in an environment, because we don't necessarily always have the time to set up a demo environment to test out a piece of equipment. So getting to see it in action, maybe not exactly how maybe we would set it up, but getting to see it in action outside of a trade show, because we know that most of the time it's mostly smoke and mirrors anyway. There may not necessarily be exactly the setup going on, as we see what's going on in their booths, but getting to see it in action, getting to talk to those engineers who would be able to answer those questions that you might have about setups or anything. Because I know that my team has certainly asked. They tend to ask a lot of questions when we visit these types of places. So it's great to be able to have those experiences that you might not normally get to have.
For sure. But I will say that there is also the flip side of the coin, where experience centers, they're built to showcase the equipment, right? And they are built to showcase the equipment. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never had a piece of Crestron gear function the exact same way in my environment that it does at the experience center. No slam on Crestron. It's just they're two completely different environments with two completely different setups and purposes. And as a result of that, in education, we'll manipulate gear to do things that maybe it wasn't intended to do, or program things that maybe the engineers hadn't considered. And as a result of that, the experience changes. But I think we also have to be careful of the experience centers, because they show that ideal performance scenario, which 99.9% of the time you're not going to get outside of that experience center, unless you're really, really lucky.
No, well, yeah, no, you're right, because they have it set up in the ideal conditions under which they control everything. And Lord knows, in a classroom, we do not have control over all of the elements at all. And from day to day, they could even change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other variable that changes are the people that are showcasing the equipment, right? If I'm showing off equipment in a room, it's going to be a very different experience than the experience center people who are trying to show me, hey, this is what this can do for you. It's like, well, that's great, but I only want to know what this one piece can do for me. I don't need to know the 900,000 other bells and whistles. I just need to know, will it do this thing I need it to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I feel bad somewhat for those people who are kind of middle of the country, where they don't tend to be at all close to any of these types of centers. Like, maybe you kind of, some companies are set up like Chicago, like maybe, Midwest, you can kind of get close to there. But for the most part, some schools, it takes people 2 hours to even drive to the nearest major airport. So it's like, they may not be able to have, get to experience those centers as much. But I guess that's where, things like companies that do road shows and things like that those can come in handy, because they can bring that stuff to you potentially.
Or even more important is also your peers. If you have a question, I'm interested in Crestron, I'm going to say, hey, Matt, how does Crestron, and what are you using in your environment? How does it work? What if I set it up this way and that way? Hearing it from one of your peers is also extremely, extremely valuable if you can't get to one of the experience centers or, like you said, the road shows.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Peer network.
Yes.
That's better than gold, and it also, it has really strong ramifications for any company, for any product. I think what may be lacking, and it's surprising, is to some degree that some of these companies, and not just Crestron, we can talk about any company, that's just the most well-known one, but any of these companies, that they don't do some kind of virtual tour experience to allow those people who don't have access, right? I mean, it's not that it's outside the realm of our capability. We've proven, with COVID, with everything else that we've done, that, hey, in fact, we can have a very successful virtual tour. We can have, I would love to do an hour and a half walkthrough of the manufacturing side with their engineers, and not just talking heads on a meeting. Walk me through the plant. Show me what this stuff is doing. I would absolutely love that. Does that mean I don't want to go down to Jersey to check out what's going on? No, but it gives me a nice supplement if I can't get down there for whatever reason.
That's a fantastic idea. You guys hear that? How about there? Virtual tours. Make it happen.
Yeah.
So the next piece is on AVNation.tv, written by Robert Heron, Extending Reality in Broadcast Production. Universities are becoming more and more sophisticated when it comes to what they're outputting and whatnot. Where's broadcast going in higher ed spaces?
So I think that, as we evolve, and this even goes to instructional design, you want your product to be more professional. You want it to be, I'm not going to say more slick, but just more presentable. And in order to do that, you need production tools that can sort of scale up and match that kind of, I'm going to say, adaptability. And with the VR sets and the direct view LEDs, what you essentially are doing is you're taking a green screen to a whole new level, where you can, and I was even amazed to know that, some of the floor tiles and, are made up of these types of technology, the DV LEDs, and it allows you to give that flexibility to create any kind of environment, any kind of background, make it look slick and productive. You don't have to worry about, okay, just as an example, we'll put somebody in a jungle and we'll just do whatever. You can put that background up there, and it allows you the flexibility in your production repertoire to pretty much adapt to anything, whether it's physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, whatever. You can create a background that is very relevant and a setup that is relevant to whatever curriculum you're dealing with. So from that, perspective, I think that's amazing. I mean, we used to all mess with a chroma key and, all this kind of stuff. And now you can create any kind of background with something like that. I personally have seen it. We don't have it here so we have to look at the cost and that kind of thing, but I'm sure there are institutions out there that use this and find it to be a great tool.
Yep. And I agree. I don't, it's not something I use. We have had a couple of professors ask for an entire lecture hall to be green screened at one point, which was an odd request, but I think I'm going to be the guy with the unpopular opinion here. So feel free to direct any comments, not to Aaron. This is my own unpopular opinion. There is something to be said for how that medium is enhancing the message, right? I am all for technology. I am all for making things look really, really strong production value and make sure that they have exactly what everyone's looking for. That being said, I'm also for the message getting across, and depending on how these are being implemented and where, I found that instructors get lost in technology. And the more technology we put into a room, the easier it is for them to get lost, and they lose their focus, they lose the message, and then the experience diminishes. Is it the fault of the technology? Maybe. Is it the fault of the amount of the technology? I would argue yes. I would argue that to some degree, all of these advancements are fantastic and have their place. But in a general lecture purpose, I'm not necessarily sure that it actually enhances the learning. And I'd love to see any kind of metrics. And if there are, absolutely, I would love to see them. But I would love to see any kind of metrics that show the experience is better because of being able to throw up that massive background, or being able to have that content behind you in that way. Because I know there are a lot of students that, whether or not they identify are neurodivergent, and you put them in an institution where this kind of thing is set up and some kind of lecture hall, and they're just completely overwhelmed the second they walk in. And I'm sure there are professors that are too. And so it's really a question of balance. Is while this is great, has its place, and I think there are absolutely some benefits for it, but I'm going to be the unpopular guy in the room who loves technology. But I would say in some cases it's getting a little too much, because we're trying to showcase, hey, you can do everything now, but everything is too much. And everything is where you start suffering from analysis paralysis, because now I don't know what I want to do anymore. If you're giving me an unlimited buffet option, I'm not sure where I'm going to start. Point me in a direction and then we're good.
So, yeah, to sort of take that a little further, I think, Matt, what we need to do is separate the experience.
Yep.
This tool is really more used for production, not classroom, everyday lecture hall kind of use. And that would just be too overwhelming. The place where this would work is controlled post-production.
For sure.
Maybe they're creating some kind of special document or something like that. But as far as for everyday lecture, classroom use, no, you're absolutely right. It's just absolutely too overwhelming. Yep. And I totally agree with that.
And I think there are some instructors, though, that would absolutely love it, is all I'm saying. Like, there are instructors that I know would get a kick out of doing this every day and don't care so much about the post-production side of it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially in faculty that teach flipped learning. So they have that component of recorded content, so they can make it kind of outrageous and really attention getting. But like in classroom, not as much, unless that's what you're teaching, unless you're teaching broadcast or you're a film school. And then that really kind of opens up possibilities for the students, because then they're not limited by the set necessarily. They can create digitally their backgrounds and stuff like that and create sets at like a bit of a lower cost in that respect. Obviously, the front end cost of the whole DV-LED wall, totally, that's a great expense. But I think it, in some respects, it could be really great for especially certain programs that potentially need to attract students more. They'll be like, we have this studio that is available for use. Like, that's a great admissions potential, like, student catcher. But yeah, for the average day-to-day thing, probably not so much.
And I just bring it up obviously because I started that partial diatribe with, I've had a couple of instructors that have asked for green screen, and it's interesting the way that pedagogically it would be really interesting to start adding the addition of AI into this kind of tool and really just let everything out on the table and see how creative people can be. And I think that's great. But again, to your point, Aaron, and to yours as well, Rob, is from a broadcast perspective and from a perspective of this is a niche tool for specific use cases. I think that's where we sort of have to direct that. And I think that it can get very misleading when people see articles like this and the first thing they see is, this would be great at my institution. Let's start rolling everything out, because that's usually how people see, right? We talk about the network from before. Oh, it's great. The network is lovely until the faculty network starts talking. And then when the faculty see something that is so exciting, and I'm not begrudging them, I think it's great. I would love to play with one of these things, but also, are you looking at upfront cost? Are you really looking at, hey, this is something cool, or is this something useful for the experience? And that's sort of where the balance is for me.
Oh yeah. I'd probably be absolutely rich if I had $1 for every time a faculty member was like, I was at this school and they had this thing. And so then I'm like, awesome, love it. This is great. Let's run with this. Come up with a quote of how much this is going to cost. And then they're like, oh, yeah, never mind. Because it's great. It looks amazing, and love that they have the ideas. But yeah, in practical reality, when we have budgets, not as much.
But the application of this tool and the ability that this tool offers, I will say, after being the unpopular guy, is really fascinating. It's really interesting to see, how far we can take this now. Is really, the world is your studio at this point. Now we're not limited, to Rob's earlier point, to the set. This is now, hey, we're limited only by the potential of whatever we can program at this point.
Oh yeah, like any of the immersive experiences and stuff, just it can. I feel like it could only heighten learning, but of course, then but the data we don't.
Yeah,
we don't have the data yet. So, so this last one comes to us from AV Magazine on avinteractive.com. ClearOne to continue product warranty and support services. So I'm sure we, had all heard about ClearOne and Biamp. But what happens when you can't get your standard equipment any longer, or like, where do we go? What do we do?
Wow. Okay, so where do we start with this? Do we start with the history or the current part of this? So I'm going to sort of throw somebody under the bus a little bit here. So recently, I believe it was Shure or Sennheiser just stopped one of their new MX, the wireless thing, sort of out of the blue. And now everybody's sort of scrambling around either to get old inventory, to, bolster your replacements, and then try to figure out where you're transitioning over to as far as the new product goes. And I think that applies here. Certainly, I don't even know, this tickled me because if you know the history of this, so ClearOne, and we have quite a bit of ClearOne stuff, not so much the DSPs anymore, but when way back, 10 years, 12 years ago, we loved ClearOne. Fantastic audio products, way ahead of their time. And then they came up with the ceiling array and the patent, and then Shure and ClearOne got into a war where I've actually almost seen the reps like at each other's necks physically. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. But anyway, so the fact that, they had a discontinuer and they're doing this and they happen to be bought up by Biamp is in a way a sort of a good thing, because the company that's acquiring them has some idea of the audio infrastructure, of the conferencing infrastructure, of the collaboration infrastructure. So in a way, Biamp acquiring ClearOne is sort of going to funnel those old customers maybe over to Biamp, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But, it brings to question again, Aaron, it's like when a product is discontinued or a company is discontinued, what does this do with your standard? It sort of puts it in a tizzy, and you just have to make the adjustment to, okay, we're stopped using this product. Now we have to find a new one, test a new one, ask people I know, get demos, go to experience centers, see that kind of thing, and just make the adjustment onto the new platform. And I think, Matt, you were, shaking your head yes, and buying up old inventory to give you a little bit of a buffer to make that transition. So this is fascinating to me. This is, when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw it, and the first thing I did was send it to my design guy, and all he sent me was that emoji with the head explosion. And what's interesting about this, and I've always tried to, I'm one of those people that I can't look at, this is best case scenario. I have to look at every scenario, and I have to really make sure that I have like 4 backups in place, because I don't trust, for whatever reason, I don't trust that something's not going to be discontinued. Insert Crestron matrix switchers here. That notwithstanding, that's my own personal bias, and I've already informed my Crestron reps that I was not pleased with that, but that's neither here nor there. What's interesting about this is I try not to call any of my product that I use standard, because the second I call it standard, it's the second that somebody else starts speccing stuff directly into my designs, and I know it's not going to either last or work or be available by the time that design gets through RFP, et cetera, et cetera. So I always try to work within guideline and find 3 or 4 products that would be acceptable to work within the specification that I need, which I find tends to be a better way to approach, especially when this kind of situation comes up, because I've been burned before where a product suddenly got discontinued, not the Crestron stuff, but a product suddenly got discontinued, and I was left scrambling. And it was because I had specified this into about 3 or 4 RFPs that I had already had out. So, at that point, everything becomes a change order. So the second that I start putting it in as a standard, people take it as gospel. But the second that I start just leave the specifications, it has to meet these specifications. Then at least I've given myself a little leeway on either side to say, okay, this Atlona device will work, or this Crestron device will work, whatever it happens to be that I need to fill that gap.
Absolutely. Because in the end, as long as the experience for the user is the same, they don't care what label's on that box in the rack.
We might right. Because of the expense. We might, or because of the design implications, we might.
Right. Yeah. Or and it's never fun when you get that one set of rooms that you're like, great, now these have this in them, but all the other ones have something else in it. And so when you're supporting it, you're like, all right, I have to do this slight difference in how it, does its firmware, or does, its communications and setups and stuff. It's never fun. You have to do a new one.
No, it's not. And I think the other thing to take into consideration when, as Rob was talking about, buying up as much as you can, I know there are a lot of schools that also compete for those parts, a lot of manufacturers, or a lot of vendors that will be also trying to do the same thing. But the unanticipated cost of having to do that mid-cycle, if you're, halfway through your budget year, or towards the end of your budget year, you may not have that budget left to buy up those parts. Yep. And then now you're in an even bigger situation, because now your options are, I can buy up a couple of these parts, but I better start speccing something, or I take funding out of my next year's budget, know that I'm going to lose X amount of thousands of dollars that I could have used for something else, right? Now that this part has suddenly been discontinued. So again, it's a give and a take. It's whether or not buying those parts may get you part of the way through a refresh, but it's not going to get you where you want to be ultimately, because now you can't get those parts for the next 6 rooms, to your point.
Absolutely. And trying to follow those roadmaps can be something, because sometimes the map may say one thing, but the reality may be quite different. Yes.
I think we've all been in a situation where the road is no longer there.
And it didn't update on Google Maps.
No, exactly.
Friggin' Waze sending you off in somebody's front yard.
But at least you got somewhere, and I think that's the important thing, is that at least you got somewhere. I always get scared about this kind of thing, and this kind of story honestly doesn't even faze me anymore, because so many of these quote smaller companies are getting absorbed that at this point anybody who's not buying something from the Trons or from Biamp or from Shure or Sennheiser ultimately runs that risk that something is going to be discontinued. Right? Like as the technology starts to get better, production starts increasing, manufacturing differences, what patents expiring, whatever it happens to be, all of this stuff will eventually get absorbed anyway. So we always run that risk.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic episode. And so, Matt, after this episode airs, if someone wants to reach out and chat with you, how might they get in touch?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. I'm also active through Avixa. So definitely reach out to me there, or you can email me at matt.o'reilly@utoronto.ca. I'm happy to chat with you then.
Excellent. And Rob, how about you?
You know, I'm a simple guy. You can catch me on LinkedIn. Pure and simple.
So as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on the HETMA community, and each month here on the AVNation's EdTech podcast that can be found on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find other AVNation podcasts like Women in AV, AV Career Mastermind, State of Control, and more. See you next time.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.